If you're listening to this podcast, it means you're hungry. Hungry for change, hungry for growth, and ready to have a major breakthrough in your business. As a partner or founder in more than a dozen businesses that do more than $5 billion in revenue each year, Tony Robbins has learned from the best in the world, the Steve Wyns, Mark Benioffs, and Peter Gubers, what it takes to be successful. Whether you've been in business for decades or are just getting started, it's important to get help from someone who's been there, someone who's going to coach you through it. That's why Tony is offering a free one-on-one business strategy session from one of his top business strategists, a $600 value, completely free, no strings attached. If you're listening right now, go to TonyRobbins.com/CEO and sign up for a free session with a Tony Robbins trained business strategist who's helped business owners just like you to overcome their obstacles and set them on the path to success. In a world where 96% of businesses fail after 10 years, you must know how to anticipate and how to take advantage. Take advantage of this offer today.
In this episode of the Tony Robbins podcast, we're bringing you back to Business Mastery, where Tony recently led a panel discussion with the business leaders behind some of today's fastest growing companies. This time, you're going to hear from one of the founders of a company that changed the eyewear business forever. How did you get your pair of glasses? Was it from a retailer? An optometrist? How much did you pay? The process of purchasing eyeglasses has always been two things: expensive and inconvenient. On average, a pair of glasses cost nearly $300. But before you even shell out your money, you have to find a reputable eyeglass retailer, sift through tons of unfashionable and unflattering pairs, then finally place an order. Then play the waiting game until that pair was ready. It's a real pain point for a lot of people. And that's exactly why 4 friends at Wharton Business School decided to start a business that did something about it. Neil Blumenthal, Dave Gilboa, Andy Hunt, and Jeff Rader launched Warby Parker in 2010. The premise was pretty simple: offer customers high-quality eyewear at affordable prices and establish a convenient direct-to-consumer model so that customers could get eyeglasses anytime, anywhere. But what made this company so special was how focused they were on perfecting the customer experience and the massive amounts of research and experimentation they did to find that sweet spot. In this episode, you're going to hear from Neil Blumenthal on the vision behind Warby Parker, why it was so critical for them to optimize every single dollar they put into that company, and the tools and strategies that helped them build Warby Parker into $1 billion business.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us the story, how this came about. Very few people know the story. I know your clients do and customers do, but many people don't when I was talking to them, and I think it's fascinating. Would you please share it with us?
Sure. Well, I think the best businesses solve real problems, and this was a problem that 3 of my buddies and I had, where we'd walk into an optical shop, get real excited about a pair of glasses, and then walked out like we got punched in the stomach. Because how many people have paid over a couple $100s for a pair of glasses?
For sure.
That's a lot of people, right? And so you've all had that feeling. Last time I checked, glasses were invented 800 years ago. And the last time I checked, it doesn't have any rare earth metals like an iPhone, right? And yet here it costs more than my iPhone. So we thought, well, there's got to be a better way here.
That's wild. I never made that connection in my head. That's really wild when you think about that, isn't it?
So Jeff, Andy, Dave, and I were graduate students. We were getting our MBAs at Wharton. Dave had just lost a $700 pair of glasses in the seat pocket of an airplane. That was a painful day for him. And we were sitting talking in the computer lab. Dave was telling a story. Jeff similarly had a pair of broken glasses, and as a full-time student now wasn't going to pay to replace them. And Andy was wondering, like, why aren't people selling glasses online? Right? You have Blue Nile selling engagement rings. You have Zappos selling shoes. Like, at some point, somebody's going to sell glasses online. And I had previously run a nonprofit for about 5 years that would train low-income women in the developing world to start their own businesses, actually giving eye exams and selling affordable glasses in their communities.
Wow.
In places like, thank
Beautiful.
you.
Beautiful.
And there's places like in Bangladesh and India and sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America. And there you really see the power of a pair of glasses transform somebody's life.
Yes.
But I would go and visit the factories where the frames were manufactured, And here I was producing glasses when I was at this nonprofit for people living on less than $4 a day. And then literally 10 feet away on the next production line, I would see some of the biggest fashion brands that you can imagine. Marc Jacobs, Lanvin Von. So there was a big disconnect between what it cost to produce eyewear and what it was being sold for to folks.
Wow.
So
so from there, how soon after that did you guys get in the business, and what were some of the stages that you went through?
So we had this quick conversation. It ended because we all had to run to class, and then the day sort of got away from us. And I had this feeling in my stomach. You know when you have an idea and you feel it in your gut. And I was having trouble sleeping. I was up. It was now 2 a.m, and I fired off an email to Jeff, Andy, and Dave. And I was like, "Hey guys, like that was a really interesting conversation. I think we should continue it tomorrow." And at 2:01, Jeff responded, and at 2:02, Dave responded, and then Andy responded.
That's awesome.
And we all had that same sort of feeling in our gut. So the next day, after class, we decided to go where the most important decisions are made, a local bar. And we sat over a pint of Yingling, which is a local beer in Philadelphia. And we just started talking more and got more and more excited. And we promised each other 2 things. One was that if we're going to do this, we're going to bust our butts. And even though we had each had demanding jobs that were, way more than 9-to-5 jobs that were all consuming, we knew that starting a business was going to be very, very different. And the second thing that we promised each other is that we're going to remain friends throughout the process.
Beautiful.
And thank you.
Absolutely.
And thankfully, we are still friends.
Is it 9 years? How many years have you been going? So
February will be 7 years.
7 years.
Awesome.
Right.
But I guess 9 years since we started thinking about the idea and started working on it. I think one of the things that we realized was that there's a lot of smart people that have started very successful businesses, and a lot of smart people that have said, "Hey, we're going to remain friends throughout the process," but who have subsequently, become enemies, and those are what movies are made of.
Yes.
We've all seen that documentary 1 or 2 times. For us, what we decided to do is that we were going to follow up that promise with action. And I know it sounds cheesy, but what we would do when we were getting started is that on a monthly basis, we'd all go back to the same bar, and we'd sit across the table, and we would do a 360 review.
Wow.
And we would literally have conversations to make sure that if there was any bit of tension, which there should be, right? In businesses, there are conflict, that we aired them and we discussed them so that way it didn't simmer and then explode.
Yeah.
So I remember explicitly there being one conversation where I turned to Jeff. I was like, "When you shoot me a 10-page email at 2 a.m. about my area of the business, I want to reach through the computer screen and strangle you." And he looked at me. He's like, I'm so sorry. I was just really excited about these ideas. I wanted to share it with you. And sure enough, that's exactly what he was doing. He wasn't checking up on me. He wasn't worried that I wasn't doing the work. He wasn't worried that I didn't have enough ideas. But as a human, right, your immediate response is to be defensive.
Yeah.
And that conversation and these 360 reviews really set the stage for the culture at Warby Parker, which is a lot about feedback, and even one of our core values, which is to presume positive intent. Because in that moment, I wasn't presuming positive intent.
That's beautiful. Tell me, how did you fund the business initially?
So we promised that we were each going to put in $25K, and then we each said if we needed more, we'd put in another $5K. So we literally started the business with $120,000, which I don't know if you could do today. We recently raised money. The valuation is now over $1 billion.
Not
which
bad.
is
Amazing.
kind of crazy. But
What does that do to your head from where you guys started with? Is it sunk in at this stage, I guess?
It's kind of crazy. I think what's probably more crazy is being able to sort of share that story with others
Yes.
here, which is incredibly motivating.
Yes.
But I think it was a very special moment in time, and not necessarily a good time, because we started working on in the end of 2008, was really working on getting ready to launch the business in 2009 so we could launch in 2010. So this was right in the midst of the Great Recession, and that, I think, helped clarify in our minds we had to provide value, right? Yes. A $95 product that would typically cost $400 or $500, but it also made sure that we were very, very careful with cash. So now that we're almost 7 years in, we finally buy pens. And everybody used to make fun of me because they'd say, "Oh, Neil, like, we got to get some office supplies." I'd say, "Go to TD Bank. You get a free pen right there." But
sound like the CFO more than the co-founder.
But I think one of the things and we take a page from the tech world on this, is that how do you build a minimally viable product? And sometimes, actually, I think that minimally viable product gets corrupted in the sense that people just want to build something and quickly throw it out there to the public. And we were building a fashion brand, a lifestyle brand. We were selling what is a fashion accessory, but it's also a health product. So it couldn't be something that was just duct taped together. It had to be fully formed and thoughtful. But that being said, we didn't have to go overboard. What were the things that we really needed to do to see if it would be successful? And in our minds, it was have product to sell. So we had to design some glasses and produce them. We had to have a place we could sell them, so a website. And then lastly, we had to let people know that we existed. So we were building this lifestyle brand, and we knew we only had one shot to launch this brand. And in fashion, that's incredibly important. So we hired a fashion PR firm. And those were the three things that we invested in. We didn't pay ourselves salary. And when we were building the website, for example, none of us had a technology background, but we knew that we could ask other people for help, and that we could learn how do you build one and see, are there pieces that we could do ourselves? So, for example, some of the design of the site right in 2010 when we were launching, the world was all about desktop e-commerce. So we would literally lay out each web page on PowerPoint. And then, because we didn't have really money to hire developers to build a prototype, we would print out those sort of sketches of each web page and go to our friends and say, "Hey, this is the home page. What button would you press? Oh, this is the gallery page. What button would you press?" And we would do sort of this in-person user testing. Yes. So by the time we went to a web developer to build our website, we had a real clear example of what we wanted, which helped define the scope, because when you have a tighter scope, vendors will charge you less because there's less risk of scope creep, so they don't need to build as much contingency. And we also knew that we could better evaluate developers because we knew exactly what we wanted.
So we talked about the other day, if you guys recall, today people, if they don't already have the software or an app, people think they can't do it. You take out a piece of paper and you try something and you measure it. Tell me, so many companies I've seen take off when they finally found the irresistible offer. Obviously Tony Hsieh did that at Zappos. Yeah. Made it $1 billion company by just coming up with the right offer, right? You've seen the same thing, iTunes with 99 cents. What was your irresistible offer? Is there an irresistible offer? And how did you find it? And how has it played out?
I think that it's, tapping into something that we experience as customers, being frustrated, and, having a pair of glasses, the same quality, the same design that you'd want for $400 or $500, but sell it for less. Now, the question is, how do you do that? Well, we thought by building a direct-to-consumer business, right, we would be able to bypass the middlemen, bypass the other retailers, right? So you have to wholesale, other businesses have to wholesale their frames. Then those retailers mark it up 3 to 5 times. We were going to give that all back to our consumers. And likewise, because we were developing our own brand, we didn't have to license these other brands and then pay a 10 to 15% markup on that. So when we looked at this industry, we found that it was dominated by one particularly large company, a company called Luxottica, They own brands you may have heard of, like Ray-Ban and Oakley, Persol, Oliver Peoples, Arnett. They license a lot of big fashion brands like Ralph Lauren and Chanel and Prada and Dolce & Gabbana. They also own a lot of optical retailers like Lens Crafters and Pearl Vision and Sunglass Hut and Sears Optical and Target Optical.
Wow.
And they own the second largest vision insurance plan in the country, iMed. So
some domination there.
Right. So when we saw this, at one moment you get really scared that there's this behemoth, right? This Goliath out there.
Yes.
But then you get excited because now there's this David versus Goliath story that I think helps from a press and narrative standpoint. But more importantly, these market dynamics are in our favor because they keep prices high and they take advantage of consumers, where we can come in and charge way less and develop a far greater customer experience for our customers.
So like Zappos overcame the challenge of how do you sell shoes for ladies if they can't try them by making an offer that looked like it was suicide at the time. We're going to take as many shoes as you want and we'll pay for the shipping, and if you don't like them, we'll ship them back. Tony Hsieh was betting on the fact that women love shoes, and if they don't fit, they'll fit in the future, in the mindset of many women, right? Change their life. For you, I noticed you have, Tom Shoes came up with the offer, right, of, buy one and we'll give one. You seem to have combined some of those elements. I saw you have, like 5 pairs of glasses for 5 days. And then also you do make a pair for other people. Can you talk just a little bit about the offer?
Sure. So,
and is that new, or is that what you've had all along?
From the get-go, right? So when you're building your business, as we've all experienced, right, it's a roller coaster of emotions. There are moments where you feel like you're the smartest person in the world, and there are moments where you feel like you're the dumbest human being on the planet. And when we were building Warby Parker, we'd often ask people, hey, would you buy glasses online? And many people would say no. And those were those moments where we felt really stupid. And they said, well, we want to touch and feel the glasses and make sure they fit. So given that we were building sort of this technology company, even though it was also this fashion brand, we thought there's got to be a technological solution. So we found some pretty cool technology where you could upload a photo of yourself and virtually try on glasses. And then we started to test it ourselves, and we're like, you know what? This is okay, but it's not really there yet.
Yeah.
So it then took some time to reflect, to figure out, hey, there's got to be some other way. What if we actually sent people the frames to try on? Then they can decide which one they want to buy. At that point, we'll put in the prescription lenses and send it back to them. And that was one of those aha moments. And we loved it because it overcame this major customer hurdle where people want to touch the glasses and try and make sure they fit. But it also solved this issue, this potentially financial issue, where we were going to offer free shipping and free returns. And that was just because we believe in treating customers the way we want to be treated, and we didn't want to pay for shipping and returns. And we wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to buy. So by doing this home try-on program, we also figured we reduce return rates. And within eyewear, if somebody returns a pair of glasses, you have to basically throw out those lenses, because the likelihood that somebody has the same frame, the same prescription in each eye, the same pupillary distance, right, it's really rare. So this home try-on program became a big part of Warby Parker. And when we launched, we got featured in Vogue and GQ, and GQ called us the Netflix of eyewear.
Oh, wow. Great branding.
It was great. And the company took off like a rocket ship. We hit our first year sales targets in 3 weeks. Sold out of our top 15 styles in 4 weeks.
That's incredible.
It was mayhem. We had a wait list of 20,000 people.
Wow.
And, to your point about the offer, the other thing that we committed from day one was that for every pair of glasses we sell, we're going to distribute one to someone in need. And that was...
It's beautiful.
Thanks. And that was because as we were thinking about sort of building this business, we knew that we would be able to help people in the U.S. By bringing down the pair of glasses to $95, but knew that there were roughly 700 million people around the world that don't have access to glasses, and what does that mean to their ability to reach their potential? And as we were thinking through this, we thought, well, we could commit to donating 1% of revenue or 1% of profits, but then we thought, well, what if we're not in control of the company anymore? That can be easily manipulated to sort of be sub-optimized rather than optimized. The other thing that we thought about is that actually it's not about the number of dollars, either high or low. It's about getting glasses on the faces of people that actually need them. So that's why we made the commitment. Now, we did this because we want to work at a company that we were excited to come to work every day, where we didn't want to roll over and hit the snooze button. When we spent a lot of time doing focus groups and surveying our customers and just observing them, we knew that the number one reason why people buy glasses is not because the company has a social mission. So actually, a lot of people that buy Warby Parker glasses have no idea that we've distributed a couple million pairs of glasses to people in need. And that's because we don't think, we don't think that that's the number one reason why they buy glasses. So we lead with what the number one reason is, which is fashion and design, then price, then quality and service, and then our social mission. And most people don't realize it until they get their pair of glasses, they open the gift box, they open their case, they get their glasses, and then there's a little card that says, "Thank you for buying Warby Parkers. And by the way, a pair will be distributed to someone in need."
Wow. Out of the standard offer, yes, let's have a hand for that for sure. Out of the standard offer of, try 5 on for 5 days, how you're sending those without the lenses then, is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
And then what percentage of those people end up getting all 5 pairs of glasses? I'm curious.
Very few.
Really?
Yeah, I wish it was very high, frankly, but we don't need it to be for the business to be super successful. One of the things is that people in the U.S. tend to buy a new pair of glasses once every 2 years. And while people buy from us far more frequently than the average, we didn't want to build our business on radically changing customer behavior because we know that that's really hard and it's not necessarily predictable. However, if we could build a stable business that just delivers a better service that still is in line with the current market dynamics, fantastic.
That's great.
And then, if those dynamics change and we change it, then that's just more and more upside for us.
Okay. Ride the horse in the direction it's going. 3 questions real quick, and then we'll bring in our third, and we'll do them all. How about, yes, ma'am, right here.
So first off, I've listened to all of Tony Robbins' stuff, and I'm most excited about your interview today.
Oh,
this has
thank
been
you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
How did you go from, I have a startup and we funded it ourselves, and how did you go through that first round of financing to really take care of the nerves of, I'm not ready to let this go?
So we were fortunate in that we had enough, that $120,000 enabled us to launch the company. So then when we launched, we had market fit immediately, right? We had these press pieces. So by the time we went to investors, which was almost a year later, we said hey, we've effectively de-risked this business. We have a brand that resonates. We have product that people like, and we have sales that show that we're on this growth trajectory. So we were in a position of power and leverage where we were able to basically not so much dictate our terms, but there were certain things that were really important to us. So for one, we want to make sure that we had control of the board of directors and that we as founders, also our founders' shares had more rights than the investors, and that there couldn't be a change to the board without a supermajority of our founding shares, that there couldn't be a sale of the company. So we were, I think, very deliberate in what were things that were non-negotiables for us. And one of the things about fundraising is that terms tend to get worse over time. So the best terms that you can establish up front, the better, because you can use that as a template in later funding rounds. So that was something that we were sort of thinking about. We also tried to bring in investors early on that we're early stage investors because we wanted the big guys to still be out there and compete and fight for us in the future. Because sometimes if you bring in the big guys too soon, then when you're raising your next round, if they're not enthusiastic and perhaps leading that round, that could send a signal to the market that maybe not everything is as kosher as it should be. So that's just one small risk that we wanted to avoid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, how about this gentleman right here, or this lady, I'm sorry, right over here on the right side.
I'm Poonam, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And awesome. And I just got these, and I've experienced a lot of buyer's remorse right now because I did not spend $100 on them. I wish I knew about you. So I just want to clarify, you're saying you don't sell the brand name glasses, right? So my question is, what do you feel is the consumer trend now? Because it seems like as consumers, we used to be really brand conscious. We wanted the Ralph Laurens and the Pradas in our bags and, especially fashion accessories, but even with cars. And it seems like what you're doing, and even Airbnb to some extent, is you're sort of bypassing that, right? And can you talk to that, and also where you think it's going?
And Abercrombie and Fitch, I was just reading the other day that, millennials don't want the name on there anymore, right? And they're in such economic trouble because of that sea change. We all talked about this yesterday, right? Making sure look for the cultural shift, because those are things that could disrupt your business. How do you look at that?
Sure. So I'd first say that people are more brand conscious than ever. However, the attributes that are important to them have changed a little bit. So having a big flashy logo on a pair of glasses, for example, isn't as attractive as it was a decade ago, and particularly with millennials. One of the things that we did early on is that we did a survey before we launched the company where we sent people pictures of glasses, some with logos, some without, and we asked them, how likely are you to buy this pair of glasses? How on a scale of 1 to 10, how good quality do you think these glasses are? Would you buy them? And in general, most people did not want the branding and the logos on their prescription glasses. However, they did think that the ones with the logos were of higher quality. So that's something that we are constantly grappling with, both because of our price point and because we don't have a lot of branding on our glasses, because there is this perception, right, that price equals quality and that logos are markers for quality. So that's something that we think and work hard to sort of counteract. But the other thing that we found was that, in particular, people in the creative class, that for us were going to be real influencers building a fashion brand, so the editors at fashion magazines and stylists and so on, they were even more extreme in that they didn't want logos everywhere. So that led us to not wanting logos everywhere, and was actually confirmation of something we felt ourselves. But I would encourage people to think a lot about what are the attributes by which you care about a product, and that has changed. There's a great HBS professor, Youngmi Moon, who's done a lot of work on millennials, and she describes buying laundry detergent. And a lot of us grew up, for example, buying Tide, and we bought Tide because we thought that it washed your clothes the best. Now, right, I think we all believe that every laundry detergent we buy will wash our clothes, right? Most products will do what they say they will do. So when that's the case, you start to make decisions based on other attributes: the design of the packaging, the environmental impact, how that company treats their employees, for example. Those are all brand attributes. And that was something that we spent a year and a half thinking about when we were building Warby Parker. Because, right, a brand architecture is your reason for being. It's your mission. Then we figured out, hey, what do we name this company? Because for us, we were building this brand that stood for fun, creativity, doing good in the world. We felt that writers often best represented that. We thought that there was this inherent link between eyeglasses and reading and learning. So we went to inspiration of different writers, and the name Warby Parker actually comes from two early Jack Kerouac characters, Warby Pepper and Zag Parker. And we actually went through 2,000 different names before we found these characters, and it was, again, one of those aha moments. So brand
We'll be right back.
than ever, but those attributes are now there are more of them. And experience, I know it's a buzzword these days, experience, but it really does matter, right? And it's about a holistic experience. So our brand is not just our product, it's the moment somebody hears about Warby Parker, and we hope that they hear about it from a reputable source, either from a friend or from an expert like GQ or Vogue and how we launched. When they go to our website or into one of our stores, we now have 46 stores, that experience is easy and fun and convenient, that when we say we're going to ship you your product in 5 days, that you get it in 4 days, right? And that we're constantly exceeding expectations, that when you come into our store, you need an adjustment, that's a great experience, that if you want to return it, it's easy. You don't, it's not like Amazon where a phone number is hidden somewhere and you can't get somebody on the phone. Somebody calls Warby Parker, a human being answers the phone within 6 seconds. And that's the brand, and that's the brand experience. So I think we need to really expand our thought on what a brand is.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, both of you, both these organizations are so focused on giving an experience. We all hear about that, but what I hear with both of you is this constant, actual, direct communication with your clients, finding out in advance what do they really want. And as simplistic as that sounds, it gets left out of most small businesses. Third question. Yes, ma'am, right here in the white sweater.
First of all, you have a brilliant product. My question is, in a market where you see retail stores going more to online, you guys started online and then you went retail, and you went retail in like major places, the Design District in Miami, for example, or actually the Art District. Spent a lot of money. When the trend has been the opposite of that, what made you guys decide to go into the street?
It was very much consumer driven. So when we launched, as I mentioned, right, we had this big spike in sales. Literally within 48 hours, we had to temporarily suspend our home try-on program because we'd shipped out all of the inventory. So we didn't have glasses to send five to people.
Quality problem.
Right, exactly, a champagne problem. And people started calling up and saying, oh, can we come into your office? And we were like, we're working out of my apartment, but you're welcome to come here. And literally, that's what we did. We invited five.
Spend the night. We have a little Airbnb mattress on the
side. We literally invited 5 people to come into my apartment. We didn't want to invite 100 people because we thought if this was a bad experience that this would tarnish the brand, but we figured we'd de-risk it and we'd test it with 5 people. So the first store was my dining room table where we laid the glasses there. Our cash register was my co-founder Dave's laptop. So I remember those folks came in, tried on glasses, checked out using just our webpage, no point of sale. And the first person was a medical resident, and he was in scrubs, and we just created this great connection. And first it taught me that vulnerability is key to relationships, and brands can create relationships with their customers just as human beings build relationships with other human beings. So somebody coming in and seeing us responding to customer emails on our couch, right? Like, how often is it that you meet the founders of a business and you get to see sort of the inner workings of it? And the second thing was that there are some people out there who want to touch and feel the glasses. So when we opened up our first store, our first office, it was in Union Square in Manhattan. Union Square has a lot of public transportation. We wanted it to be easy to get to. It was a loft space with great southern-facing windows, so it had good light. And we dedicated about a third of the space to having a store. And suddenly, we were doing a couple $1 million of sales through our office. And it was kind of crazy. And we kept doing these experiments on how do you display glasses? Do you do it on a table? You know what? That's not as convenient as being at eye level and putting shelves on the wall. Oh, people prefer full-length mirrors versus head and vanity mirrors. And some of these seem like really obvious learnings, but as novices, it wasn't obvious to us. And the sad thing is that most optical stores don't have full-length mirrors. This was something that we discovered within like 5 minutes of our business. And I think that goes to building a culture of learning and testing. So once we were doing a few $1 million of sales within our office, we thought, well, we could probably do even more business at ground level. So suddenly we did a pop-up store. Again, this was part of our process to de-risk what is a very expensive investment, right? A 10-year lease and over $1 million build-out. So we did a pop-up store. That was successful. We bought an old yellow school bus, ripped out the interior, and put oak shelving in it, and had this beautiful mobile store that went to 15 different cities. And then,
wow, that's really good. That's really cool.
We called it the class trip.
That's really cool.
And you could buy a sweatshirt, you could buy a mug. If you were one of the kids that used to hang out in the back of the bus, you could buy a flask. Everyone that bought a pair of glasses off the bus, it came in a brown paper bag like it was lunch. It was a pretty cool brand experience. And while it wasn't our intended effect, when it was done, suddenly we had sales data from 15 cities and 3 locations. In each city, we knew exactly where to open up stores based on where the bus performed best. So our journey into retail, I would say, was consumer-driven, and then we did a lot of testing to de-risk it as much as possible.
Tremendous experiments like we talked about yesterday. Give them a hand. Beautiful, beautiful job.
The Tony Robbins podcast is directed and hosted by Tony Robbins and Mary Buckheit. Annie Org is our editorial director and occasional host. The podcast is produced by Carrie Song and Tyler Culbertson. Jamie Carvajal and Adriel De La Torre are our digital editors. Special thanks to Diane Adcock for her creative review. Copyright Robbins Research International.